Okay, let's see. Going live. I'm live. I got busy this morning and ran out of time for prepping stuff for going live and such. So, I'm here now. I just, like 2 minutes ago, said that or posted up the thing that was like, I'm gonna go live. So, what I worked on last time was this animation that you see here. Here on the far right, you have the painted stills that are color mixed where the stencil is flush against the paper. The one on the left is one where it has a decent gap between the stencil and the paper. And the one on the far left is the series of stencils themselves where blue is on top, then yellow, and then red at the back. And I like the physicality of the stencils, and what I want to mess with today and what I've prepped for is having the animation be a stack of stills. Oop, I didn't turn off Photoshop last time. Good thing I didn't have anything there. But what you can see here, it's a little bit hard to discern with the lighting, so I might have to figure that out a little bit. But there's a bunch of stills that are cut out sequences of the animation. And right now it's just out of white cardstock, but what I'm curious about is how this will animate, like changing the sequence of things. One, then the next, and then the next, and the next. And I'm going to try recording it two ways. One way will be photographing, and one way will be scanning. To make that a practical sort of thing, I need to make some sort of rig that works for those. So I'm going to get some foam core and just cut. All I really need is a square section. This is a little bit thicker than the foam core that I have, so I'll need to have the foam core be square and vertical, or I could do it as a few iterations of it, like just stacking it. I'll have the same issues. I think I'll be better off if I just make a square section, and I will use my camera to photograph stills of it so I can get it at a higher resolution. And I will use my macro lens so that it's up closer and can focus in and get possibly a greater depth of field, but I don't want it to be so exaggerated and just having that physical element. So what I need to do now is get some foam core and cut. I could do it like a perfect square, but it'll be easier to mess with if I just do it on one edge, or two edges. Make it so I just slide these into a corner and then slide them in again and again. The overhead visual will be a little bit different as I'm photographing, because while photographing, the aspect ratio of the preview is different and it's a lower resolution. Because to save on battery life and such, it does this. But yeah, so I'm going to just cut some foam core to a corner that I'll probably make it like an inch tall, tape that down to the surface of this according to what looks best when I put on the macro lens to the overhead camera that's up here. Alright, I'm going to grab the foam core. And I want to get this as straight as possible. Gonna switch the overhead camera to be a macro lens. I think that I turned off the overhead light, but this gets a lot more of a dynamic color. I was looking for something that's small. This has a bit of leeway, but just a little bit. You know what? I might ultimately try this from a few positions. Like have it head on, straight down, then at an angle, just to see how all of this behaves. This is new territory for me. So figuring out as I go along. Alright, you're gonna be seeing a lot of like black as I photograph stuff. gonna change the position of this camera. Okay. One and more photographs. Thank you, Curtis. This is music that I've made. I forget what songs they are at any given time because I make a lot of music. I forget the titles is what I should be clarifying. But I started making music to avoid issues with DMCA copyright stuff, mostly for streaming. Ooh. There's a storm nearby. Usually get a better view of what's happening, but because I'm photographing, what you get is a bit different. If you want to listen, a bunch is on Spotify and other streaming services. I make it on my Nintendo Switch. I save it out to cassette tape. I think that's enough of like having two angles, at least for a test run sort of thing. I am going to next save these files to my computer so that I have them available, and in doing so I need to turn off the HDMI output from the camera, so it'll be black completely for a little bit, but I'll still be here. It's got a generally a crunchy sound. You can hear whatever. The quality is also augmented because it's shifted a bit, because if you look in the above me on the left side, the tape player is playing the actual tape. On the Switch, what I use is Korg Gadget because it's robust for what it gets done. I don't want to scan this. Everything's a bit cramped right now because the camera is further down than it normally is. Storm's like right here. There's no time between that flash and the thunder. Anyway, tight space because I have this space dedicated to the rig for photographing. I have the camera that normally is like a couple feet off of my desk, like 1 foot from the surface, and it has a wire going across. I disconnect my keyboard to connect to my camera, and so I can't use my regular keyboard, so I gotta just sort of, everything feels a little bit tight. Almost set to be back to what I was doing before, or to have a better view of things. But because I'm photographing, the process of getting from camera or recording device to my computer per still is a lot faster than using the scanner. Are all of these off of here? I believe so. Okay, so turn off camera, disconnect, reconnect, do this, that, and the other, and then be ready. For airbrushing, it's right here is where I airbrush. It's a bit tighter of a setup than you might assume. So I have my laptop over there. My camera is at a 90-degree turn, so this is vertical for me, but it's horizontal for you. Let's see, I'm just closing out of some stuff. I'm also a little bit thrown because I started later. Yeah, the airbrush goes here. I put down a piece of canvas. My airbrush compressor I put immediately to the right, which is where my scanner bed is at. And then, how do I want to weigh this down? Do I want to just put this on top? I can. Yeah, it's a pretty tight space. Computer's here, mixer over there. The tape player that you see in the corner is down by my foot. This is all contained on my desk. Something that was a helpful realization was the wall is a place I can hang things. So The wall is where my camera is mounted to, as well as my light, where before I had like a tripod on my desk, and that did whatever, didn't do great. And it was also an issue because if I bumped the table, it would move the tripod. And then Mike is mounted on a shelf and going over there. Yeah, how do I want to handle this placement and such? Yeah, Storm's right there. And right now my airbrush is under my desk, along with an old PC that I got from Samsung for a project. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut another piece of foam core, not too large, but of a size, you know, a piece of this to place behind the back of this. About the size, doesn't have to be super square. Okay, move this away. And move this away. And before I get into scanning, I'll see what this looks like, the version of stuff that I photographed. And for that, I need to come to Finder and organize these guys. There should be 24 of either of them. Let me see when it shifts. Is it here? Nope. That's where it shifts. New folder with selected items. Overhead stills. New folder with selection. Angled stills. And this shouldn't be an issue for opening in Photoshop. Let me come back over here. I think I still have a document open in Photoshop, so close out of that. Back to OBS, turn Photoshop back on, and load these files into a stack. What else is helpful for organizing space? Wall-mounted stuff for lights, cameras, and regularly used materials, as well as place for just general materials. And then I have filing cabinets because most of the work that I work on is flat and paper-sized. I can put it into a filing cabinet, and it is an easy way to just get a bunch of manila folders, write the date on it, like loose enough description to where I have a good sense of what animation is in there, and then just file it away. Make sure all these are selected. And these are going to be pretty large because they are photographs, and the photographs are of a decent size. So my brightness is all the way up. These are just pretty dark, but that'll play into some of the physicality of it. But it means that right now things are going to run a little slow, but I think I have it large enough to be 16 by 9, which surprised by. I thought they were going to be way too small. Also, it's black and white, so I can up the contrast and such. As far as organizing spaces is concerned, I almost always like sort of hit a wall all at once, and I'm like, okay, I really gotta take hold of this. Let's crop this down. Let's create a frame animation, make frames from layers. Okay, that's where it's 18, that's doubled up. Oh, because one of these has a hole and the other one doesn't. Okay. This is a little bit more linear than I think I had hoped, but this is because it's all flat and there's no depth of field. And I think it covers too much of itself. This is confusing to look at. This doesn't look like it's real right at this moment. What is that last bit that you just said? Say process here. So this is a bunch of cutouts. What is it that organizes into a timeline like that? So I have Photoshop open right now, and how I got here is I took all the photos that I had taken, and I went to File, Scripts, Load Files into Stack, and I loaded the photos that I had taken, and it puts it into a stack where you have, in the bottom right corner, where your layers are at, you have the files in backwards order. Or, I don't know how it actually... Yeah, this is backwards. So it puts the lowest number highest up, or furthest back, lowest number furthest back, and then stacks them up from that. And then this normally isn't up, but this bottom panel, but if you go to Window and go to Timeline, it'll pull up, not with all of these individual thumbnails and stills, but it will pull up, wait, I don't want point one, I want point one. It will pull up something, and you have the option to create a timeline, I think is what it defaults to. But you can click the drop down menu and change it to frame by frame animation. And if you're doing stop motion or pulling in individual stills or individual images in a sequence, you're going to want to do that. And then in the upper right menu in the timeline, you can go to make frames from layers, and it will take every layer that exists in the document and make it its own frame. But it will go top layer to back, so it reverses. And so then you can go select all of these and go back to the menu and go reverse frames, and then it will put it in the order that you want it to be in. And if you have there's a lot of stuff that can save you time. Another thing that can save you a lot of time, if you are dealing with a bunch of individual stills and you're mostly working towards getting an animation from stills that are alphabetically or numerically sequenced, like you have the file name as, let's say, still 1 is still underscore 01 and the .jpeg, and the next file still in the sequence is still underscore 02.jpg. If you pull those into Premiere or After Effects, you can go import, and then if you click, just select the first image in that sequence and go to options in that window. It'll have the option, it's like a checkbox that you can check import as image sequence, and it'll pull in everything that's in sequence as a video file. It won't be saved as a video file, and depending on how large your stills are and stuff like that, you might have some issues with jitteriness of playback, but it makes it much easier than trying to like import into multiple things. Or something I have seen done and have done at different times is importing a bunch of stills and putting them in sequence and chopping them down to like 1 or 2 frames if you're animating on 1s or 2s. But yeah, it'll save you time there, and then you can edit them as one full thing, and you don't have to make like a subsequence or odds and ends like that. Also, if you have a bunch of stills and you don't want to bother with Lightroom and you just want to like put a modifier layer, whatever these are called, you can go to this guy and put it on the top layer, and it will affect any instance that you have. So if I adjust it here and make it like super dark, it will affect all of the stills because you're messing with the whole thing. There are settings that you can change that will just affect one, like if you grab, or it'll only affect that iteration of it. Like something that trips me up sometimes is I create a new layer and then I make it a solid, and then you can see down on this panel, because I'm on frame 8, everything afterwards it's above it, and so it doesn't affect. But if I come to the opacity and drop this down, it only affects the current frame that I'm on. It's a little bit slow. I feel like it used to be a little bit more robust, but they moved away from it. But because I started off doing a lot of animated GIFs, Photoshop is still like the best program that I know for animated GIFs. Let's put an edge here, an edge here, and I'm going to crop this down to this. I don't know how large this is. This is meant to be, okay, it's still large enough. Let's pull this one in. To 2100 and adjust the size to 1920, and then I will come in here with this guy. Seems like it's pretty centered, and make this 1080, and this is the sort of size and scale that I was hoping for crop wise. This has a feel to it. Let me see what it looks like if I make this black and white. Blow this out a bit. I'm more excited now about the one that has an angle to it because maybe it has more of a depth of field. So let me pull in those files. So file, scripts, load files into stack, angled stills, grab all of these. How many? That's 24, so I shouldn't have to delete any frames. I think this would maybe function best if I went more extreme with the perspective, which is what might take place for the scans once I get around to those. Because I'm working in black and white, I'm not as concerned with preservation of like soft colors. Okay. Create frame anim. So there's a timeline in the bottom. This is create video timeline is what the default is, and that'll give you a timeline that's not frame based. You can like open up video in Photoshop. If you're doing animation that's like hand-drawn animation, working with some sort of stylus or bamboo, or not bamboo pad, what's it called? I can't think of what the like stylus thing is called right now. I said it wrong for a long time, and then I went to some event and they were like, Baba pad. Anyway, make frames from layers. Okay, this one has a better sense of the physicality of it because the layers are going down. Wacom, that's what it is. It's pronounced Wacom. It's W-A-C-O-M because it's like a word that means something else. Okay, harsher angles is definitely the way to go for photographing these, but it's a good start. Don't fail me now. Curves. I want to like just blow out and get. I could also get a better what was that thing? Oh, a better rig for keeping these in place, but these have an interesting feel to them. I think once these are like full speed, I can also go for something that has less coverage, so it feels like it's pushing and pulling back a little bit. This was something easy to cut out that wouldn't take so long. Also the fact that this is only 3 and there are 4. Yeah, you can pull them into stacks. What I was getting at for a second before is if you do the timeline, you can do onion skinning, which I've done with a Wacom tablet in the past. And I don't know how to do onion skinning in any other like Adobe program, so it's real nice for animating. I think the length is more important, so let's pull this down to being 1920. It'll take a moment because there's 24 images that are like 6,000 by 4,000 pixels. You can pull them into stacks if you're. That's how when I do hand-drawn animation, it's scan and then I load them in to stacks. This could also be a lot softer or larger. I don't know. This is something to explore and figure out, but you know what? What does this look like when it's just at the lowest portion? Yeah, I think it's better here, and let's give this a crop as far right as I want to. I can also I think it's better with a little bit of texture there. And let's crop this. This is just for me as I'm figuring things out. 1080. So I am going to adjust the size on this to just be 540 so I can save out an animated GIF and see what that looks like at speed. And you can see it more clearly because the window capture of Photoshop is oftentimes not great. You know, let's get this even just a little bit more blown out. And pull this black a little further over. Not quite that. I think we're at the edge of what looks best for that. Okay, let's save this out. Let's see what it all looks like. Not too large of a file. And come over here. Live designs, paper layers, and make a new guy. Paper layers 01, this is GIFs, and this is 02. Save that out, and I want to see what it looks like here. So come over here, live designs, GIFs, and the slight jitteriness and the linear nature of this makes this look a bit like it's on a factory line and a little bit more like a stop motion something or other. There are definitely versions of this that have better outcomes, where it doesn't close in quite so tightly. Or that there's a larger offset between each of these, or that more is covered. I think something that's just like circling elements would have its own interest. Let me save out a version of this where I delete this guy. Image, rotation 90 degrees clockwise. These are all set to 0.1. I'm going to save these out as individual stills. That's another thing. If you're like editing a bunch of stuff and you want to save out the stills to import or do stuff with, let me do this and then I'll talk through what the actual process is. Live designs, paper layers, stills. And this is a folder 01 dash overhead flat. Choose that one. 01 dash overhead flat is set to 10 frames. Okay. It's exporting the image sequence. Has to render out each still. Takes a moment. And so let me step back with this. Pull this a little down. Pull this a little over. Okay, so right now I have the cropping and animation that I want. So I'm going to come down here and change the speed to 0.1 second because that's 1/10 of a second. File. Where is it actually? Export render video. So file, export, render video, and you can't see what I have right here, but I it either has Adobe Media Encoder or you can do Photoshop Image Sequence, and that's what I use to save out these edited stills so that it's what I want and how I want. And you can do edits to individual images or versions of something, like if there's a hair in the way or a stray mark. If you're doing hand-drawn animation, you can clean it up and remove it as you're working in the midst of it and save that out, which is much more annoying to do if you find something that's incorrect or poorly registered in Premiere or After Effects or something else. So this is angled pics. Create that, choose that location, and this will be called angled pics. And you need to change, why I changed it to be 0.1 seconds is you can change the frame rate that it exports at, and I export at 10 frames per second because it's one that's easy to convert to a decimal. That's one thing that's weird about Photoshop stuff, is that for how animation is almost always on 1/24th of a second or some variation of that. How large is this? Okay. Those don't divide evenly into like clean numbers. Or a 30th of a second. 30th of a second is 0.03333333333333. It's a repeating decimal, so you can't type it in that way. So annoying in that way. Now I'm exporting. Where I need to change the frame rate. And save this out again. Come on, just save that as that, and then I want to replace it. OBS, and let me get this thing, GIFs 01, and this one actually gets a little bit of physicality in it because the shadow is so clear. This direct overhead, you get less of the depth, but you have some of the physicality of it. I think if I have thicker paper, more stills, harsher angles, various things to mess with. Now what I'm going to do is just, that's good, saved out the stills. I'm going to scan. And the scanning will take a minute. Let me quit this. One thing that I want to mess with what was that question on here? Planning to separate the layers for more depth like the others. I'm not sure what you're asking. Choose this one, do this, 1200, it's in color. I don't need a 1200, I can do 600 because these are much larger stills than what I've been working with recently. Stills I've been working with recently are like 1.6 inches wide. They are small. But scanning still will take longer than photographing. Like increasing the physical distance between the two. I could do that with like foam core or something. Right now, I'm trying to throw it through the scanner, which will have a different sense of depth through the focal length. Focal length on the scanner is like nothing. And so it'll create its own bit, but I'm also a little bit concerned about my ability to keep it tightly positioned. I could exaggerate though, it makes sense. I'm not sure what would be the best material or means to do that, something like balsa wood, so that it's thick enough but it's rigid enough and a little bit more consistent. I don't know. Keep scanning. Scan another. Seems manageable. Yeah, it's something that it could be, I don't know, figuring things out. Yeah, this is cut with a machine. I'm not doing this by hand, so it's easy. It takes time, but it's still a lot faster than doing it by hand. I'm using a Cricut machine. Cricut cutter. Scan again. It's also why it's not present in the GIFs, but I used the Cricut machine to write the numbers in the corners, and it's much neater than my handwriting by like a real big margin. I do not have neat handwriting. These are going to be, I think, particularly jittery. Okay, this is the 7th frame, so I'm about a third of the way through with scanning. Scan again. Thanks for tuning in. If you got questions, you can tune in. I might be busy tomorrow. Tomorrow I've got a call at 4, and so might not stream, but whatever platform I'm on, you can try and ask a question, and I'll do my best to respond in a timely manner. This one's more a trial sort of thing, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and what could be better. And I think what could be better is not having it quite so linear and having elements that move around and reveal more of the layers behind. Because what I don't like on this is how much is removed. I don't know. I'll see how it all goes. It'll still be a minute scanning. I want to see what one of these looks like. Huh. See what it ends up with. And thanks for tuning in. If you want to watch the stream later, it'll be here on YouTube in the live section. If you want to look at older streams, there's a bunch there as well. Let's go through my spiel while I'm scanning. If you want to buy stuff from me, you can go to my web store at traceloops.com/store. If you want to purchase something and have it shipped outside of the US, you can email me, traceloops@traceloops.com. You can also email me with comments, concerns, questions, curiosities, commissions, etc., etc. Again, that is traceloops at traceloops.com. If you want to follow me on other platforms, you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, Spotify, all of those places. I'm Traceloops, TRACELOOPS. If you want to support me on Patreon, you can do so by going to patreon.com/traceloops, where you'll find high-resolution versions of artwork that I create during streams. You'll also find a selection of tutorials, and then at higher tiers, new songs from me weekdays, and at the highest tier, a monthly postcard from me with original artwork on the front, little message on the back, and a discount to that aforementioned web store. Hope you have a nice day. I'm curious how tight the alignment is on this, because I feel like it's not. And that I should rely on the physical boundaries. On the scanner itself. So that's a little bit more rigid and hard set. And not rely so much on the tape. Okay, this is 17. I have 7 to go. Almost there. If I photograph stuff instead of scanning, then I can use the pinhole sort of method. Might make them larger or like square. Okay, last scan. Let's see how this looks. Quit image capture. I'm gonna wipe this down a little. Alright, back to Photoshop. I'll turn these off for the time being and see how this all looks. I'm likely going to need to do some slight adjustments on aspects of these guys. This is also upside down. Here's what I'm gonna do. All right. I should have gone ahead and renamed these, but I was like, I don't need to. But I did. Okay. $24, $23, $22, $21. What is this guy? 1, 3, 2. Okay. Let's straighten this according to the first guy. Give it a moment. And like a general understanding of what I'm working with position-wise. And one down here, and we're just gonna have to come in frame by frame and I would need a better rig if I'm doing this, because with a scanner, the inconsistencies are like much different feel. I feel less forgiving because it's more removed from what is your like regular perception of something? I think this, if I'm doing more of these, that I would like to photograph them or otherwise better align them, which might be building a different sort of rig, which makes sense. It's just something to learn from. Just about, or a little over halfway done. We got some money 'cause I just got paid. How I wish I had someone to talk to. Man, I'm not far away. Another Saturday night and I ain't got nobody. I got some money 'cause I just got paid. Oh, how I wish I had someone to talk to. Man, I'm not far away. I grew up knowing the Cat Stevens version of that, and then in high school got more into various like soul and such, and listened to the Sam Cooke version, which is a little bit softer. Oh. Let me crop this down and see if it looks better. Let me export these as stills. This is O3 scans aligned. Bump dun 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 bump dun 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 dun. And load files into stack, browse, live designs, paper layers of 1, stills, aligned. Open these up, load these in. Talk quietly. Well, let's just bring it in past this little edge. And past this edge. It's chaotic. The overhead shot's better. You get a better sense of stuff sort of fading back, but not really, actually. Okay, not my favorite. I don't like the scan. I prefer the overhead shot, so that's what I'm going to stick with. So it's these two guys, and I will learn how to make this better. I think it might be combining elements and messing around with having stuff be, I don't know, just a more dynamic and interesting motion, because this is a test. This is open, close, large and small, circle, but in getting so small, you cut off the layers from the overhead shot, and there's no shifting, so it's not like you're watching a spiral or something just move around. All you're seeing is this set action that looks like it's a texture that's coming into view and out of view. And if there's a greater contrast between one frame to the next, I think you'll have a better result overall. The scanning worked okay, but the photographing worked a lot better, so I'll push in that direction. Spiel time again. If you want to buy stuff from me, you can go to my web store, traceloops.com/store. If you want to purchase something and have it shipped outside of the US, you can email me, traceloops@traceloops.com. You can also email me with comments, concerns, questions, curiosities, commissions, etc., etc. Again, that is traceloops@traceloops.com. If you want to purchase something and have it shipped outside, that I already said. If you want to watch this stream or other streams in full, you can find recordings of them on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/traceloops. Go to the live section. There's a bunch there. If you want to follow me on other platforms, you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, Spotify, all of those places. I'm Traceloops, TRACELOOPS. If you want to support me on Patreon, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Traceloops, where you'll find high-resolution versions of artwork that I create during streams. You'll also find a selection of tutorials, and then at higher tiers, new songs from me weekdays, and at the highest tier, you get a monthly postcard from me with original artwork on the front, little message on the back, and a discount to that aforementioned web store. Thank you all for watching. I'm going to head out and probably not coming or streaming tomorrow. But if you have an itch, you can scratch it by looking at all of those recorded ones. Okay, have a good evening. I'm going to head on out. Adios.